Welcome back to You Are More with Emily Cave Boit. This is episode 17. I'm excited to have Kristina on for this episode. She's an amazing entrepreneur, owner of KB & Co. for all the Edmonton people following the podcast, mom, and just an incredible mental health advocate. Her journey is the definition of You Are More and everything that she has overcome. So it's an honor to have her on the show today, and I hope you guys enjoy and just learn a lot from her journey. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm super excited to have you on. Honestly, I miss KB & Co. quite a bit here in California. Chester does too.
Aw. Oh, I know. One day we'll get out there.
I know. But yeah, just knowing a little bit about your story, I felt like you had to share, and we wanted you on the podcast because I feel like your journey is the definition of You Are More, from your childhood to, KB & Co. being so successful, to Shark Tank, to your journey with mental health and the loss of your sister, as well as now adopting your little daughter who's so precious, and the journey
Yeah.
that led you to that. So let's just start. Obviously, your whole childhood is a big question to start with, but is there any key points in your childhood, looking back, where you are in life now, that you are just so proud of yourself that you got through or got to where you are?
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think, yeah, definitely a lot of, I would say, like, probably start in my teenage years. For context, I guess. Yeah, I was pregnant at 15 and had my first child, my oldest, at 16. And I guess for context, prior to that, had been living, the previously 5, 6 years, kind of in and out of foster care, couch surfing, being with friends, partying, and partying in the way of, like, back then you would smoke pot and get drunk. So not, I've shared a few times in other podcasts. I did do LSD at 11 years old, and a handful of times. Absolutely awful experiences, and far too young to be introduced to something like that. But so getting pregnant at 15 felt like par for the course almost, right? Like, it felt like,
Mhm.
I had been living from, 11, 12, 13, like, this life of a maybe 17, 18, 19-year old, like, going through this, like, party phase. And so when I got pregnant, it just felt like I was now, like, 15 going on 22 or 20, 23. I remember thinking, oh, wow, I'm like, I I've lived a life. I've had my party phase. I'm, like, ready to settle down and have kids, but I'm 15 years old. So yeah, I had my oldest when I was 16, and it was actually his father that ended up bringing me back to, or bringing me to Edmonton, which is how I ended up here from the Okanagan in BC. And I think, like, in that moment, I just remember being terrified of being judged and being another statistic of what a pregnant teenager would likely turn out to be. And
Mhm.
so it really put me in this, like, overdrive of, like, how do I not be? How do I prove to everyone, that I won't be, like, a welfare case, or amount to nothing. And so I ended up going back to school. When I was 18, I had my son, and then took a bit of time off, went back to school, and then ended up taking, going college courses through college in the Okanagan, but it eventually dropped out to buy a business. Ended up buying a Quiznos franchise, which is hilarious considering what I own today. Yeah, I would say that, like, that was a very pivotal moment for me and big shift for me
Mhm.
in terms of how I was going to turn out, and how I was going to raise my child at the time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you think it's funny when you said how you moved from Edmonton? It's crazy how everything pans out, right? Like, now you live in Edmonton, and I'm sure when you first made that move, you're like, this is horrible, as you're saying. And then it's I don't know. I go back and forth on the, like, fate, ironic, everything kind of happened, but how everything, you look back in your life and all the puzzle pieces, even the traumatic, sad one's full of reef somehow intertwine and come together.
Oh, 100%. I think there is, I mean, you're right. Like moving here from a place like the Okanagan where you're surrounded by lakes and mountains and, growing up in that environment as a young kid, I don't think we appreciate that as much. And
Hmm.
so I definitely remember being in like Edmonton thinking like bigger city, like this is definitely for me, but also where are the mountains and where are the lakes and where do we go and swim? And so that was
It's
a
a
big,
little cold.
yeah, cold, and you're not going to swim in the river valley, that's for sure. So,
I did a float there once and it was a questionable
experience.
float. I like had like 3 showers after I got out.
I know, yeah. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been in the river valley, not even in the floating. I haven't even taken, they have like a little ferry that runs through it, right?
Yeah.
I haven't been on that either. Some friends of mine took me out to Alberta Beach, and I just remember thinking like, this is your guys's like beach. This is the lake. Like, where's the lake?
Yeah,
Which is very different from the Okanagan for sure.
true.
But
Now you're a true Edmontonian.
yeah, I can say that when people ask where I'm from, like I do, I will still say like born and raised Okanagan, but really Edmonton is home. And being in Edmonton was so purposeful. Coming here was so purposeful. What I've achieved here and what I've done and the community I've created, it was that hands down, this is where I was meant to be. So yeah, I do believe everything that we're going through is purposeful, good or
Hmm.
bad.
Talking about what you've created in Edmonton, KB & Co was actually the first, like one of the first places, if not the first, that I went to in Edmonton when we got sent to Edmonton. So tell us a little bit about KB & Co, how you kind of briefly started that, what led to that, and now just how incredible it is today.
Yeah, awesome. Glad it was one of your first
It was so
experiences.
good. The berry smoothie with avocado toast is my go-to.
Yes, it's your regular
Yeah.
order. Yeah, well, KB and Co is as you know, is a plant-based cafe, and I started it in 2016 with this like nudge and itch to get back into the restaurant business. I was out of the restaurant business for about 5 years prior to starting it, and I was kind of in the corporate real estate world. Um, and I've always had I've just always had a passion for food. I'm a big foodie. I love food. But during my time in the corporate world, I was committed to like working for someone. I had been in and out of entrepreneurship. So I was like, oh, to like start something again. Like I was fine with entrepreneurship. You're in it and you just absolutely hate it. And then, and then when you're not in it, you miss it. So I think it is in my cellular, like it is in my DNA to do. But during my time working corporately, I was kind of like I was suffering from like various gut issues. And there didn't seem to be a lot of products or food out there that was a good alternative to like, meat or dairy at the time. We're looking like at like 12, 13 years ago, it was like soy was
Hmm.
really your best option for alternatives. And implementing a vegan, we'll say vegan. I'm not vegan, and I can get into that and why I feel like it's very different, veganism versus plant-based. But
Hmm.
um at the time, like vegan offerings were very sparse, like that were actually going to taste good as
Hmm.
well. So I was trying to eliminate dairy, but I also learned through this time that I was allergic to soy. So soy products weren't going to work for me. And it sort of sparked this like, how do I was eliminating meat and I was eliminating dairy and eggs sometimes, mostly, but the odd time I would have it. Or if somebody said there were eggs in a baked good, I wouldn't like not eat it.
Not eat it.
Um, so I just started playing around with like various recipes while I was still working in the corporate industry and, figuring out sort of this like new diet, if you will, or new eating plan that really just primarily consisted of mostly plants and whole non-processed foods, which, by definition, plant-based means whole non-processed foods. And so the things that I were making, I wasn't resorting to highly processed meals in the way of like fake meats or like, non-dairy stuff. I was just creating things from scratch that just happened to be like using mostly nuts through, in the way of like creating desserts and dressings and power bites and stuff. And um, I will admit, like a lot of a lot of it tasted like shit. Like the beginning, a lot of it tasted awful. And
Who was your taste testers?
mostly my kids, mostly my kids. And they were in there like, they were between like 9 and 16. So they were not
They had
happy.
no filter.
They absolutely hated it. And I I just I would make them meals still. I would make them these like roast beef, potato dinners. Then I would have a separate meal. And so I would have this like really boring meal, but then I would kind of razz them about how they were eating too much meat as I like put down the pot roast on the table. And I was like, you guys need to limit your meat. It's actually not good for you. Too much meat. The American Canadian standard diet is has been wrong. Like we need to incorporate more plants into our diet. As I eat this like really, beautiful, vibrant salad. And then I kept emphasizing that like the way they were eating, to which I was preparing still, was bad for them. And it was my oldest that was like, I don't, can I just say, it was at the dinner table once. He's like, can I just say, like, why are you feeding your kids like meals that are like allegedly so awful for you, but you're just like sitting there eating this like healthy meal? And I'm like, I literally had no answer. I actually felt super ashamed and I was like a big mom fail. And he said, if you actually like created these meals that actually tasted good, like I get that they're healthy, but if they were actually healthy and tasted good, that would like entice our like,
Hmm.
ability to like be more open to trying this stuff. So it was sort of a light bulb moment. And I was like, oh, you know what, you're right. I need to make it taste incredible. Make it taste like it's actually not good for you.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of that moment, pivotal moment of like, okay, and I still, at the time, I wasn't sure if I was going to get back into business and create a concept like this. I actually went to the States. I went to California and I went to Arizona to try to find a concept like this that was
Hmm.
offering, really unique menu items that were, mostly plant-based, that I was looking for a concept that I could buy into
Yeah.
and bring back to Canada. And I couldn't find anything. There was
Wow.
nothing like this. There were a lot of juice bars and a
Mm.
lot of like raw food that really seems to work well in those types of climates. But I'm like Edmonton, mostly cold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
That may not work.
yeah, like I just and not only were like mostly raw food in the States, but at the time there was a lot of buzz around like really unique menu items that I felt like I could really enjoy and get on board with. But bringing that to, again, Edmonton, like meat and potato, like oil country, like,
Yeah.
farmer, like, I'm like, I don't know if people are going to be down with
The
like
cattle farmers aren't going to be okay with that.
yeah, I'm like, I don't think they'll like the kelp noodle infused with almond saute. Like, I just am like, this is not going to fly. So I came home like defeated. And my husband at the time said to me, why don't you just create your own? Work with a marketing company to like create the brand and just do your own, which terrified me because I'd only ever bought into franchises.
Hmm.
And but I thought like my experience prior to that in the franchise industry and now doing corporate real estate on the leasing side, I'm like, all of these things, talk about things happening for a reason. All of
Hmm.
these things that I was doing in and out of entrepreneurship and then working in the corporate world, like all of these things were leading up to like, wow, I really do have the knowledge to pull this off on my own, create a franchise. And so that was, I quit my job so at a whim with like no backup plan and just, I was all in. I'm like, and it took me about a year and a half, like to try to get the recipes to taste really, really good, but also be obviously like super healthy. And the kids, close friends were my um guinea pigs. And they would say like, oh, it's amazing. And when my kids started to like it, I'm like, okay, this is like when I could make a Caesar salad that tasted like a Caesar salad. um,
Hmm.
I will say like we have really amazing waffles on the menu, and they're so good. And my kids are like, I don't think I've ever seen them eat a waffle since like I opened, because they had to like eat waffles every day for like 1 year so I could perfect the recipe. I'm like, how about now? And they're like, oh, if I see another freaking waffle, I'm out. But yeah, I will say like I opened KB and Co M with I wasn't 100% sure. I wasn't
Hmm.
like I've nailed the concept. it's perfect. I opened it with a lot of self-doubt still about whether or not it would work, whether or not the menu items people would like it, if they would think it was too weird. Avocado toasts were really kind of, just coming out. Like, will people pay a little bit more for a piece of toast with avocado on it? Like, has that been, there was a lot of like, and mostly with whether or not it tasted good. Like, I've been eating it for a year and I'm over it now. So when I opened, I'm
Yeah.
like, are people actually going to like go crazy about this stuff? And yeah, from there, it was a grueling first 6 months for sure. And, I just, white knuckled it right to, through the first 6 months. And then, in the new year of 2017, it just really took off and blew up. And I was very, very committed in the way of, I was there all the time. You, like anything with your own business, you put in all the effort.
Mm,
And yeah, so since then, since 2016, I guess I grew to 8 locations in total.
incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. It's
Yeah.
because and where are all your locations? I know there's Edmonton, Calgary, BC.
Yeah. So I grew to 8 locations. Last year, March was, we had hit our 8th location, the newest one being on 124th Street. And then in June, I actually closed down the Kelowna location, which was the only location in BC. And that was my own location that I had held on to for 4.5 years. Just could not, it had opened one day before COVID. It just never, I fed it continuously. We were nearing like the hundreds of thousands of dollars that I was putting into it over the years, that it
Hmm.
just never, it never really took off. And I think, while I could say there was the pandemic, there were many challenges in the way of seasonal fires, seasonal
Mm,
traffic. I could blame a lot of external factors, but I also take responsibility in that I wasn't able to be there in the way that I was showing up for downtown, the original
mhm,
location. I wasn't
mhm,
I wasn't there all the time. I wasn't there connecting with customers, building the rapport with customers. And so I think that it just was kind of like the little engine that couldn't, I don't know, it just like could never, it just, you know, wasn't going anywhere. So I closed that location last year. And just shortly after, the franchisees who had that location just walked away from their business, just locked the door and walked away, which was like a whole experience. And
mhm.
um, yeah, something that, so now I was, by the end of June, I was down to two less, so 6 locations and 6 still remaining, and in hopes of growth. But I also have a higher standard. I think I've always had a
Mhm.
high standard, but now I'm more particular in terms of who buys in and if they're the right fit. And yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
people that approach me want to buy in thinking that it's just like a business that's going to run itself. And like any business, they don't.
definitely not.
So,
Yeah,
and in
definitely
this
not.
kind of industry, like, you have to be there and you really, you get to work your way up to being able to pop in from like 11 to 3, which is sort of what I work now. Like, have that
Mhm,
flexibility, but that didn't come in the first year, 2 or 3. Like, you have to put in that time and build your business before you can step back a bit. So often, Calgary franchisees, I think, had a very different idea of what entrepreneurship looked like. Kind of, you throw some
mhm.
staff in place and it runs itself. But we're still, as like, it's a unique concept, and there's still some educating and still, like, relationship building with community. And so you
Totally.
can't just walk away from it. But
Do you think like what would you say now, having 8 locations and 6 and kind of going through all of this, what would you say to another like entrepreneur, whether that's in the restaurant industry or anything else that you have learned, or like even your experience on Shark Tank, kind of, yeah, talking about that. And you kind of alluded to it a little bit there, saying like it's not a walk in a park and you got to be
Mhm.
there hands on. But would there be like a generic, a little bit more like, then like don't give up, if that makes sense?
Yeah, yeah. I think, like, oh my goodness, like, well, for anybody that's like starting or contemplating or wanting to, I just actually said this to somebody yesterday. We're talking about entrepreneurship, and when people say like, how do I take that leap? I'm like, you'll take that leap when your desire, and but just say desire, like your want for it becomes greater than your fear. And that's when you know you're ready to like
That's really good.
fully jump in and like balls to the wall, like you're in it.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you're like, I have fear, but my desire is like way, way past it for wanting it. And then when you're in it, I mean, it does, it does take time. It does. And I think to always remember, I know for me, there were a lot of defeating days in the first 6 months, in the
Mhm.
first month, first 6 months, first year, second, the days that like bring you to your knees and you're like, I'm done. Like I cannot
Mhm.
do this anymore. And then I would always kind of remember my why, like, why did I do this in the first place? Why? And I actually, interestingly enough, I knew that I had to do KB and Co to get me to where I'm going. And I'm
Mm.
unsure if the end result is KB and Co. And I knew this prior to doing it, but it all happened so organically. And then there was this like there was this inkling of like this is just like another journey that's going to get me to where I need to go. And truthfully, I think it, and maybe this is like a segue into like some deeper stuff, but
Mhm.
I think that it was, for many, many years I've wanted to share my story. And
Mhm.
because, I sure I'm an entrepreneur, and what that looks like to a lot of people, given my background, that looks like success. But I had also worked for numerous corporations, making really good money, in that like professional industry, which also could look like success.
Mhm.
And through those, in and out of those moments or experiences, I just remember, when people would look at me like, "Oh, you're the director of whatever," and I just would like, I'm so much more. Like, people have no
Mhm.
idea where
Mhm.
I came from, how much I've had to go through, what I still continue to go through. So I think that KB and Co was, it had to happen to, it gave me a voice.
And like I
It gave,
feel like a platform, like a voice.
yeah,
It gave you
it
so
gave, yeah, it gave
you
me
gave
reach.
you a community and
Yeah.
a reach for sure. Um, Speaking of kind of segueing into some tougher stuff, let's talk about well, two sisters. Your two sisters. First, let's talk about the Instagram post that you made, and I remember reading it, and I remember being like, "Wow, like this, we gotta help."
Mm.
About how you kind of got a call one day and now it has led you to a beautiful new daughter.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that was that yeah, that's I, just when you think you're on top of the world, right? You're like, I always say I'm living my best life, going out to my favorite, cocktail bar 2, 3
Yeah.
times a week, going out with the girls. And, my youngest at the time was 14. My oldest two are adults. They had actually moved out somewhat recent to this call. And I'm like, life is good. Your 14-year-old doesn't need you really as much.
Yeah.
He's, they have like definitely some independence there. And I was sharing him with my husband, ex-husband at the time, 1 week on, 1 week off. So yeah, I was, the week that I didn't have him, I was like, like life was good. A lot of work. Yeah, just
Yeah.
extra work and enjoy myself. Yeah, I got a call from Children's Services just hours after. It was a morning call, but it was hours after I was telling a colleague of mine that if like one more thing happens, I'm about ready to like, I'm done. I'm walking out. Like this in the business side. I'm like, I like shit was hitting the fan. I'm like, I'm up to like here. Like not one more thing can happen in my life. Like I'm done. And
Just kidding. Joke's on you.
it was like, yeah, it was hours later, 2 hours, like a couple hours later, I got this call. They called the store and the location downtown on 104th Street. I was working, and the employee hands me the phone and says it's Children's Services. And I just remember thinking, like, who the like I have a lot of siblings. Were 8 of us, and 6 of the 8 struggle with addiction and in and out of criminal activity. And at the time there were 6 struggling, and I didn't talk to 5 of them, like because they're just different lifestyles. And this was one of the sisters who, for her whole life since she was like 10 had struggled with addiction and criminal activity. And um, so yeah, I took this call from Children's Services who was trying to track me down to let me know that she has this 5 week old baby girl, my niece, and that she was given my contact information from my sister. She's a half sister, but that this was all what had happened to taken place in Edmonton. So I was the only contact here for my sister to potentially take this child on. And Children's Services will always do their best to reach out to family before placing a child in foster care. And so she had asked me if I wanted to take her, and I just remember like talk about like if I one more fucking thing happens, I'm done. I said like what, and sorry, when, and she said like tonight. And I was like, I so my immediate was like, no, I don't know. I don't even have like, where is this child going to sleep? Like I have crazy enough though, I have a spare bedroom with a rocking chair in there. That's all I had in this bedroom. Wild that I went and bought a rocking chair like months
Yeah.
before and put it in this room. But she said to me, I can send you a picture. And I'm like, a picture literally isn't going to like be my deciding factor. Like I'm sure she's cute, but I mean, I had 2 new stores opening in the new year. This was in October, and I had a couple more stores. I was gearing up. They were going to be open February, March. Like how was I? I was in construction phase. Like I am in no position to take on a newborn. So I told her I'd call her back, and I paced in my store like, what do I do? Having myself been in and out of foster care a few
I was going to
times.
say that was probably triggering.
Yeah, very, very triggering and very um I had fairly decent experiences in foster care, but it's no place for anyone, for any
Mhm.
child. But obviously the better alternative than being with bio parents if they're not well.
Mhm.
So I called her back and I just said, yeah, like okay, I sure, like I'll figure it out. And she said, okay, great, we'll bring her by around 6 p.m. And then I put out a call on my Instagram. So I get, speaking of community in this city being so incredible,
Mhm.
I it was also sort of my first experience, Emily, with like sharing, really being vulnerable with like,
Mhm.
because I would tell people, if they're like, oh, you're from the Okanagan. I'm like, yeah, born and raised, haha. Like just, oh, my parents live there. Well, no, my mother is living in Edmonton as a current meth addict and homeless. And my father lives there. I mean, you wouldn't say that to like somebody that's like
Yeah.
from, so you have there was this like image that
Mhm.
we've all been, I think most of us, some of us have been there where we have to, uphold. And so I felt like this was so awkward. Now I'm sharing that I have a sister who's struggling. Oh my gosh. But I need support. I have like no baby stuff. And there's got to be people in Edmonton that want to let go of things like
Mhm.
cribs and playpens and stuff. So I put this call to action out there. I'm like, this is my address. I didn't quite give it away like that, but just a DM me.
Mhm.
Here's my address. And like, I would love for like, if you could drop stuff off, and
Mhm.
it'll take anything. An hour later, I had like raced home to like figure out how this was all going to work. And within an hour, had my first some guy dropped off a blanket and like this brand new blanket and a bag of diapers. Hour later, like my doorbell just all night long. By the end of the night, I had a fully furnished room. I had 2
Wow.
bassinets, I had a playpen, I had a swing. I had diapers until she was 6 months old. It was wild.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's
Edmonton
incredible.
just really came together.
They
And
show
yeah,
up.
so yeah, took her on, and I will say like the first 6 to 8 months was really, really uncomfortable as you're trying to also, no daycare would take her. I think people thought I was some like crazed workaholic mother. I was calling around all these daycares asking if they would take like my 5 week old. And they're like, no, we don't take newborns. I'm like, I can't carry this
Please.
baby. I'm like, it's actually not my kid, but sort of my kid. Like I'm taking care of this kid, but like trying to get people to take any daycare to take a newborn was not happening. So I knew I had to just bring her everywhere I went, like, and, went to stores and strapped her to my back, strapped her to my chest if I was having to work. They, at that age, they just sleep the majority
Mhm.
of the time. So I just took her everywhere. I mean, I was building out stores. Close girlfriend of mine, Kaylin, and I, we were building out her location in Sherwood Park, and we would just alternate. Like she would take her, I would take her. She'd put her in a playpen while it was like under construction. I have to tell the contractors like not to be loud through this window because she's sleeping. Like it was just wild. Taking her back and forth to Kelowna. Thank God they like fly free for $1 because that was, I went back and forth a lot. And it was, and then also as I'm building this bond with her, I'm also now, so what's interesting, and I was in therapy at the time, and my therapist said to me, this taking this child on is going to open any wounds that you might have or unhealed trauma that you might have, because it's going to all of these family members, including your mother, whom you've, we'll say, like written off, are like, this is going to like open that because you're now dealing with family. And now I'm, through children's services, like they didn't want, they still want to make sure that the bio mom has access to baby and that is visiting. And my sister, for the first 2-3 months, was like not even like, we didn't even know where she was. And then she would come around. I knew she was still using, and as long as she, I guess, wasn't harming the baby, she could still visit the baby. So then I had to like go through that. And so there was a lot of really heavy emotions about, I didn't want her near this child, but then I did, because it's important that the child still have that bond with mother. But then I'm like, you're an addict and you don't even call me to check on her. And like, do you even care? Like there were a lot of, oh fuck, like so many angry emotions towards her.
So valid.
So right, yeah, and yeah, I'm trying to be. I mean, that I think really always just trying to take the high road and like try to be as, like not. I don't want to keep this baby from her. There was a moment where Aaliyah was about 6 or no, about 5 months, and my sister had like finally gotten into treatment, and children's services now, they were pushing the agenda of like, baby will be returned to mom when she is 6 months old and living in the treatment center with mom. And I was like not having any of that. I'm like, that makes absolutely like no sense. The child should not be living in a treatment center. Not knowing enough about this treatment center that is in Edmonton actually is a really wonderful organization. But at the time, I mean, and you just the sound of it, right? It's like, no, you don't
Yeah.
want any child living in a freaking treatment center. So I then started to get protective, um and then you're like, then I realized like, I don't want to lose this child, and now I want to like keep this child because I have this like bond to this child. And what if this and now I have these like, mom's gonna take baby away from me, and like
Mhm.
everything's changed for me. I mean, so my sister ended up, I think that was still the plan, and I had to really come to terms with like, you know I I hope that I can at least like still maintain a relationship with this child if she is returned, and that I can build trust with my sister so that if she needs me for this child, then she can call upon me. And I had to just accept that and kind of, control what you can and like leave the rest to God, if you will, right?
Mhm.
And she ended up leaving the treatment center within like a month anyways, and that just threw the whole plan obviously out the window. And then would express later in the months that she just wanted nothing to do with this child, and that she could kind of care less whether or not she ever gets her back. So that was, and that then my fight towards permanent guardianship. And just recently we've filed for adoption, and that's still in the process, but I think we'll hear back any day, as we filed back
Very
in
exciting.
February.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, she will know who her
Mhm.
bio parents are for sure. That's something I would never keep from her. Right time, right? Like
Mhm.
right now, she just needs and deserves, like any child, like stability and a loving home.
Well,
Yeah.
it has been an incredible journey watching from the
Yeah.
first Instagram post to now. She's a little cutie, and you've done an amazing job
Yeah.
balancing it all.
Oh,
Seriously, you've done
yeah.
an incredible job. Of siblings, I know this is a tough one, but you lost one of your sisters. So, kind of want to talk about that and sibling grief, and navigating that a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nothing's
R
off limits.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really that was very, very hard for so many. Yeah, so I had Aaliyah in October, and 2 months later in December, my dad had called me, and then yeah, he called me. I was driving to the mall with Aaliyah, and he actually was texting. He had called me a few times, and I was just like, I'll talk to him later. And he texted me and said, I really need you to call me, which I then knew like was serious. So
Mhm.
when we spoke, he shared that my one of my younger sisters had different sister, another sister had who had been struggling with addiction, had passed um, from a heroin fentanyl overdose, and I I pulled over, and I screamed. I mean, baby was like so young, sleeping. I might have woken her. I just screamed, and I just remember like saying like no, 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 because we had just talked. Like she would call me, I mean, often, and I would see her when I would go down to Kelowna. But when I got Aaliyah, she would usually call me around 3, 4 in the morning and wake me up, and usually be on something and crying about our family system and history and upbringing. I spent like the majority of my life just trying to like not talk about that
Mhm.
stuff. I don't want to talk about our childhood. Like every sibling of mine who wants to keep talking about how shitty things were stays stuck, and in fact becomes an addict. So I think in my mind, not talking about it and being obviously away from my family by being here in Edmonton, creating this whole new life for myself, and not dealing with anything. Not that I will say I for many years didn't feel like I needed to deal with anything. So I
Mhm.
just kind of I just had this completely different mindset on like how I'm going to move forward. And so I used to just dismiss her. It's for sure, like for sure, one of my biggest regrets, that I just would just tell her like, yeah, call me later. Like it's 4 in the morning. Like I'm fucking sleeping. Like call me when you're not high. And she would say, okay, okay, I love you, I love you. And then she would FaceTime me at 10 a.m. and she would be, it was so confusing because she was really big into like health and wellness. And she'd FaceTime me from the bathroom as she's like doing her hair. And she's like, yeah, I just had like a little relapse, but like I'm fine now. And she's like doing her hair and like getting, and I'm like, what are you up to? And she's like, I'm going for a run and I'm going to go do some yoga and have some meditation. And drugs in my family system is so normal. So, I mean, it's crazy that a sibling can call you and be like, yeah, I just like did a little heroin, whatever. And you're like, well, try not to do that next time. Like, like, that's not
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
But in my family system, it is, and nobody knows this. I'm dealing with all my siblings who not at the time, but all of them suffer from addiction, and so it's just like, oh, it's just another day. And just weeks or days before she passed, she would call me and ask me if she could work for KB in Kelowna, and I just was like no, like I don't want
Mhm.
I was just wanting to keep my siblings
Mhm.
and her included at like arm's length. So I talked to her
Mhm.
a lot, but it was
Mhm.
she had a lot of pain. Like depending on what mood she was on, if she was using it, it was like a lot of like, oh, talking about other siblings or like our mom. And so I didn't want to be closer. I didn't want,
Mhm.
and so, and I never tried to help because I just thought like it was such a choice to me especially when it came to drugs. Like you just like can choose not to do heroin or choose to, and so yeah, when she had passed, I mean, I was like absolutely sick about it. My dad, he called and I knew that he needed help right away. He had to go like he had to notify the landlord. He had to go in and like clean her apartment, clean things out. And there really wasn't anybody else that was available to help. So
Mhm.
got in my car the next morning at 5 a.m. My girlfriend drove us down to Kelowna, and
Mhm.
um, I went into this like full on like I was in the survival mode of I wasn't like I went into this when I knew that he needed my help.
Yeah.
I went into this like, okay, have to because I'm the only responsible sibling child, and I have to go in and now help everyone and help the situation, help my dad clean up the place. And I don't think I had any time to grieve during that time, because there was so much going on that I think when anyone passes, like there's then
Your
now
adrenaline.
totally. And so
Your
yeah.
adrenaline kicks in. I feel like, especially with sudden deaths like that, you kind of just go
Hmm.
in this like adrenaline mode. So I can only imagine for you and having to like travel to get to Kelowna and also
Yeah.
wanting to help your dad, like you said, like you were the only one that really could step up out of the siblings.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It was a really wild, wild time. I've shared this part of the story a few times, only literally maybe two times, where um, I was carrying so much, obviously, have this newborn that I've brought with me, that in itself is already a lot. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm dealing with, I was at my sister's apartment like 2 days later, and I'm just like so confused and shooken because the place is like, does not look like an addict's home. There looks like there was some using going on, but then there's like health and wellness stuff, and there's a yoga mat laid out, and there's
Mm-hmm.
crystals, and then you're like, what? She was trying so hard, right, to like fight
Mm-hmm.
this, like the mental health, and then like health supplements, a lot of KB and Co, like superfoods over in the corner. And it looked like she was trying to live this, like really try to embody this like really healthy lifestyle, but then also like secretly struggling with this addiction. And I'm sitting in her bedroom where we were notified she had passed. And we're also trying to, we as in a few of my other siblings who have now surfaced, because we need to let everybody know what's going on. And these siblings are closer to my mother, who at that time was homeless and an addict in Edmonton, and they cannot reach her. My one brother, who was struggling with addiction and was suicidal, called me. I was sitting in her room up against the wall, and he called and he said, I can't get a hold of mom, and he's crying and screaming. He's like, she needs to know about Melissa, and you try calling this homeless shelter and that homeless shelter. And I'm like, I'm tapped out, but like
Mm-hmm.
I and he's like, I'm just gonna kill myself. And I'm like, okay, okay, bye. Like, I don't talk about adrenaline. I'm like, okay, like
Mm-hmm.
that's another issue. And then a couple hours later, the children's services, the contact calls me and says, just want to let you know we've found Aaliyah's mom. We found her in the back alley, or a parking lot in Edmonton, and this was like winter, December, like naked. And we've rushed her to, she's in emergency, and we're dealing with that for hypothermia. And I'm like, I literally like, I just remember thinking like, how much more? Like like
Mm-hmm.
I can't even like, I can't like, I knew I was breaking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as within like 5 hours, this was all happening. And I just remember feeling like I really needed to break, but I couldn't, because
Mm-hmm.
if I did, everything would fall apart. And so I just needed to like stay strong. Okay, try to locate my mother. Okay, yeah, thank you for, let me know how Leah's mom is doing. Like I just had to just keep going. But, grief, like as you know, like you don't you don't get a chance to
Mm-hmm.
decide necessarily when, you do your best to like, park it.
Mm-hmm.
And when it needs to be heard and needs to be felt and seen, it shows up. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it was, sadly, it wasn't until like months later, maybe 6, 7 months, 8 months later, that I started to feel like, holy fuck, like I hadn't
Mm-hmm.
really grieved
Mhm.
I would just have these like, is this actually for real? Like this actually happened? And when I would think about it, it would just like, but even through those moments, I still had, like a newborn in the month stage where she'd smile at me and I'd be in the verge of like having a meltdown. But if I can't do that, I have to show up for her and be strong and give her a smile. And I remember feeling like it was so unfair and so hard for me to have to like keep this facade and smile and like everything's great. And then, never mind social media. I mean, I did share
Mhm.
what was going on for me, but then I became, a little more dormant. Like I didn't want to go on social media when I'm not okay.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
there was a lot of personal stuff with the KB and Co Instagram where I would go on and do various things and show up almost daily. And I like, as if I was going to go on there and be like, hey guys, it's me, KB. Like, here, we're going to make fucking cookies. And I'm like
Yeah.
on the verge of like, throw these cookies out the door in the
Tears
front door.
coming
Yeah.
in the cookie dough.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It just felt like it was so hard. I could feel myself, breaking. And I mean, I've since then I've like really, I mean, I've been doing a lot of deep diving into mostly self and experiencing grief. And I had a really
mhm.
hard time allowing myself to feel that pain. And what's crazy is I would learn that, and this maybe you can resonate with this too, is that when you haven't really maybe fully grieved a
Mhm.
loss, then anything in the future that you lose, it opens that
Mhm.
like the original
Mhm.
wound, right?
Mhm.
When I closed Kelowna, I was like, it's okay to grieve that you're closing a business, but I was just like, this felt like death.
Mhm.
And
Another
um
loss.
another loss. And recently, my daughter has moved to Calgary and my youngest son has moved out. He turned 18. He was like, I'm out. I'm like, I'm actually okay with that. Go live your, and he's a great kid, but this age is like super entitled. He thinks he
Mhm.
can really do all the things. Okay, go enjoy. But him leaving, and my daughter moving, it then opened up. It just ripped off that like bullshit
Mhm.
band-aid I had over the loss of my sister. And
Mhm.
so and probably other losses that I experienced earlier in my childhood that I never took time to grieve. So it's crazy how that can really rip open.
Mhm. I think no one talks about like the timeline of grief or loss. I feel like people think like you go, you show up, you do the funeral and it's done. But I feel like there's so much delayed grief too that like months later you experience things or it hits you where I feel like, yeah, social media and like today's society, you think it's like just the week of the death and then it's like
Yeah.
you're good. Where it's like
Yeah.
this is like a lifelong journey that like comes up constantly. Like those 5 stages of grief are like ever coming up in your life. And I think I've really had to, and I'm sure for you too, for your sister and even just losses of your childhood that weren't also like deaths, but grieving that. And I think for me too, like I'm sure as with your sister, I look at grief now as like I'm so grateful for that because I got to love too, right? Like, and I got to
Mhm.
like have them in my life. But switching that positive mindset back and forth can be a roller coaster and like changes daily, multiple times a day. Um,
Totally. Yeah.
but yeah, it's definitely been, and I know too now in your journey, you're doing like a bunch of stuff with like women's groups and like women's nights at your house.
Yeah.
Which looks amazing. Like
Yeah.
even that alone, had you not started KB and Co and created the community in Edmonton and then was open on social media and everything, like you said in the beginning, that was like your stepping stone to a bigger platform or a bigger community. And now look all the amazing things you're doing in the
Mhm.
community on top of KB and Co,
Mhm.
which is just like it's
Yeah.
incredible how it all plays out. But what is something in your journey now? I know there's a few other things too that really has like helped you or that you like love doing.
Maybe help me through the grief part, you
The
think?
grief, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, I will say, I mean, therapy.
Mhm.
Obviously, having like
Mhm.
somewhat like an outlet is really important. Was and is always very important. Someone outside of friends and family, I think,
Yes.
that you can
So important.
that you can share with. I have when my sister passed, that kind of felt like the nail in the coffin. Like, as far as I was like, I could feel myself breaking. I knew that like I couldn't take much more. I started to then like question. I had a pretty, I would say, pretty strong faith and belief in God, but I was starting to feel resentful
Mhm.
and starting to feel like victimized. And why is this happening? And that, I hate to say it like this, but truthfully, I remember saying this at that time to very few people, but like, why didn't he take my mother? Like, she's the fucking
Oh,
reason.
yeah. There's some things that you say and you're like, ooh, looking back, you're like, ooh, I probably should have. But like, it's valid to feel many
Yeah.
emotions and angry,
Yes.
etc.
Yes.
So,
Well,
yeah,
she
I get
seemed
it.
to be the reason in my mind, like, you're the reason I have this baby because and you're the reason she passed and you're the reason. So the list went on. Like, she was the reason.
Mhm.
Why not take her? That would just have made all of this so much more easier. I say that, but I do know in my heart I would grieve her passing as well.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it would be very hard on me, and for me. But I had all these like questions, and like I didn't understand the world in the way that I thought I did. And I had never lost anyone in my life, not even a grandmother's. I didn't, have friends who lose people. I'm like, that's got to be really tough. But I hadn't lost, I had never experienced that. So, and then when you do, then you understand like why then you're so angry and like you don't
Mhm.
understand life. So
Mhm.
I explored psychedelics in the way of like trying to understand like the other side. Like, honestly,
Mhm.
I just wanted to know, like, does like, I know God's real. I feel like the presence of creator, but why then take people, why
Mhm.
is all these awful things happening in the world? You start to go down this like rabbit hole.
Mhm.
And I had met somebody who had said that psilocybin journeys had changed their life in the way of like life, understanding it. And
Mhm.
so of course, at first, now I had like done some crazy drugs earlier in my life, but I say crazy. I actually like, pot, and then actually did acid at a very young age, but nothing like coke or like
Mhm.
any harder, although acid, it's pretty hard. I just remember, and given my family system, like there's no fucking way I will touch drugs. Like,
Mhm.
there's no way I'm gonna like do drugs, that I'm like just like the others. But I think like the intention, and after meeting, it was these shamans out of BC that were facilitating these 5-day 2 journey workshops. Yeah, as I learned more about psilocybin and its effects, to like, has been known to kind of provide like insight
Mhm.
and clarity. Potentially, it also is known to bring up stuff in the way of like
Mhm.
what you need will come up, not what you want. I really wanted to go into my journey. Like, I was very clear. I'd like to see my sister. I'd like to understand why she left. That's all I know. And like,
Like, this is my agenda, nothing else.
yeah, exactly. Just
Can this
like,
please just go right for me? This one thing.
exactly. That's all I asked. And that is in my first journey. That is not at all what happened. I was super pissed after I came out of it. I was like, I cried the entire time. They're like, you had a lot needed to come up. I'm like, I want to talk to my sister. I just want to talk to my sister. I wanted to understand too. I wanted confirmation that she passed, of an accident. That was
Mm.
weighing heavily on me.
Mm.
That it was an accident and that it wasn't intentional, because
Mhm.
I think that would have laid on the guilt way
Mhm.
thicker. And
Mhm.
so when I went into my second journey, which was 2 days later after some integration, I actually, in my experience, I felt like had a conversation, had felt her spirit, had felt and understood. I sort of came out of it with this like, okay, this is life. This is what life is. This is like,
Mhm.
we asked for free will, going back biblically, like we asked, you know, for to do whatever for all the things to happen, and that I do believe, I started to believe that like there's this path is purposeful, and that there's everything is purposeful, everything happens for a reason. After my experience, I forgave my mother. I Just something that
Wow.
I had never ever thought I'd do. I came back to Edmonton and met up with her, and I just said, I forgive you. Oh my gosh, I forgive you for all of it. And I love you, and I just want to be here for you. I I told my dad, I remember my dad had picked me up from this center, and I said, Dad, she didn't leave on purpose. Like she didn't, it wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
We would later find out through an autopsy that it was looked like appeared to be accidental. So kind of confirm what I had experienced. But I that was sort of my entry into this like understanding life, um, the healing work that I needed to do. And
Mhm.
so now I mean, I continue to work on self because I do know that like I was sharing with my recent, daughter moving. Just when you think you're fine, that's what's crazy too about grief is like you're like, wow, I'm doing actually really good.
You're like, it's a
Whenever
good day.
yeah, it's
Just
good.
kidding.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like everything. Well, my my daughter leaving really upset me more than it maybe should have. My son moving out was at the time like more upsetting than it should have been. And I think if I were to get real and start peeling back the layers, I'm like, oh, I see. This is doing is sort of is opening up that some unhealed grief,
Mhm.
the experiences of loss, that feeling of loss. There's more loss. Okay, what loss haven't I fully embraced, hugged, like, and then going
Mhm.
back to self. So I really, I mean, I do a number of, I guess, like meditation. Meditation has been huge for me, and
Mhm.
my faith has like skyrocketed big time. And I will say, we talking about again like purposeful and everything happening for a reason. My sister's passing gave me the ability to forgive, something and my compassion
Mhm. Mhm.
and capacity to be more loving and more present. Um, I almost want to say like like I my
Changed your life.
it changed it immensely for the better. And I was working so freaking hard, Emily. I have my whole life since 15, 16. Like I've been in this overdrive, overachieving, do all the things. Family's great, sure, but I never grew up believing or being taught that family was everything. I
Mhm.
could give two shits about my family at the time. Wanted nothing to do with them. So I didn't have that embedded in me. And so I would kind of raise my children. God bless, like they've all turned out amazing. But I put my business before my children. I put my social life, my personal life before my children because while also still raising them to be good children, I
Mhm.
was more of like, just like, I'm your mother, do as I say. Like, I don't, I just, I didn't value the time that I had with them. If I'm being
Mhm.
completely honest, I didn't understand how valuable that time was. And then when you lose someone, you're like, oh my gosh, the things I would have
Time is
said,
everything.
it's
Mhm.
all we have. And now I'm like, I could really give two shits about what I do. And now I'm like, I just want to be there for Aaliyah. I want to show up for my children. I want to just spend all the time that I can with them. And because that's what's most important. And so it humbled me very quickly and gave me, I think, like this newfound new perspective.
I couldn't agree more on everything you just said. Yeah, I think, yeah, time, everyone always thinks like, or even the cliche saying like YOLO, like you only live once. Like it was kind of like a joke saying for so long. And now I'm like, no, it's actually so true.
100%.
I'm
Yeah.
like, there is so much truth behind this.
It's so
Like
true.
take this seriously.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
your journey has been absolutely incredible. And yeah, to watch and to get to know you in Edmonton. And I thank you so much for letting Chester come into Cave and Co with me after Colby died because I remember people like, "Are dogs allowed?" And I was like, "He has to come."
Yes.
I
I
was like,
remember they would ask me, like, I think I got a call once. I wasn't there, and they're like, "This girl keeps coming in with a dog. She comes in every day with the dog." I had no idea who you were at the time, and I was like,
yeah,
"So let her come in with her dog. I don't know what, like, who cares?" They're like, "Okay, just wanted to make sure it wasn't." Staff are just like you train them to be very like kind of robotic, right?
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, KB and Co. helped me quite a bit
Mm,
after Colby
mm,
passed away. So just even got me out of the apartment, the berry
yeah.
smoothie, avocado toast.
Yeah, a
So
strawberry.
even
That's
in
also
those
really good.
ways, you
Yeah.
helped so many people that you didn't even know when you were starting these recipes. So it
Yeah.
shows you the like imprint you can leave on so many people. But thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing your story. I'm sure
Yeah.
your sister is so proud of you. I can
Mm,
only imagine. So,
mhm.
but yeah,
Thank you.
thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was
No
nice to
problem.
connect, and I'm over here just rooting for you. Always know that
Well,
I
thank
see
you.
what's going on and watch the battles that you've had to face. Not only
Mm-hmm.
just I can't even imagine in your shoes to have gone through, just wanting to just rightfully experience the grief
Mm-hmm.
through Colby's passing and then have to then all of a sudden now have to navigate through some of the negative experiences that are to follow.
Mm-hmm.
I just it's so awful. I think I was sharing with my sister who you were the other day. She was like, "Who?" I'm like, "I mentioned you before, but she
Mm-hmm.
forgot." And I said, one thing I really find like refreshing is when you've shared previously, you would share what people are saying
Yeah.
and calling them out. And my sister goes, "F yeah, yeah, that's she should totally be doing that." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, no, she would. She full on would say, like, let me share what you're saying."
Yeah.
And I love that. I do. I love that. I think that's bold and that's brave. And I think that those people need to be called out. I know this, that this is what comes your way in the way of these
Mm-hmm.
negative comments it's such projection.
Mm-hmm.
It's such like when I've been, I think, tried. I was almost canceled through COVID, through like all the hatred that was going on. And
Mm-hmm.
if I said something like eat healthy, people were like, "You don't believe in vax." I'm like, I just told people to eat healthy. I don't like it. Was so wild.
I remember I posted one time, I'm sure you saw this, and it was like I was just telling people to follow the rules. Just because like let's just follow these rules and I think too because I knew it came down to like what bothered me was if it came down to they're running out of beds, Colby would have been pulled off life support, like for the ventilators and all that. So I was
Mhm,
like, just saying, like, there's other accidents that also happen, like whether it's
mhm,
car accidents, whether it's all this. And I woke up like the next day and it was like on TMZ and New York Times, and it's like Colby Cave's widow lashes out against COVID deniers. And I was like, I said nothing about this.
oh my
I'm
gosh.
like, I literally just like, this was like a few weeks after he passed away. And I was like, well, shit. Like
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I can't even
I learned so
imagine.
fast. Like so I
Yeah.
can yeah, I get the COVID people coming
Oh,
for you about that.
yeah. Oh, and being in the healthy, I didn't participate in the show me your QR before I let you in, because in my
Mhm.
mind at the time, I was like, I'm depriving food to various people that probably, if they're not getting vaccinated, like maybe need more health food than the rest of them. And I'm going to say
Mhm.
no. That is like not even in my brain. That's not a thing. Like I'm not doing that. And so by deciding not to do it, that definitely opened the gates to like your like it was just like I'm just trying to provide food and I will bring it out to the car, drop it off 5 feet away and walk away. Like I'm just trying to provide healthy, whole food for
Food.
everyone.
Yeah.
But that I've definitely since then, and I'm sure for sure you experienced this now where like your skin is a lot thicker than it
Mhm.
was, and
But
you
softer at the same time. I feel like
oh
I was
yeah.
talking to my parents about this. I feel like I'm definitely more like tougher, but then at the same
Mm,
time I definitely like you said have like the more compassion and more like
hmm.
understanding of things. So it's like a 50-50, if that makes
Right.
sense. And it
Yeah.
changes
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
on the situation.
Yeah, there's expansion there, it sounds
Yeah,
like. Yeah, which is
totally.
which is good, but yeah, I think when people are coming at you, it's just projection. And I remember hearing or reading, who said this once, like maybe Brene Brown, where like if you're not like, no one will ever criticize you who's doing more than you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like I
Mm-hmm.
often think about that when I face criticism or when I see people lash out. I honestly just want to say, like, you are loved, love yourself, and like, go home, run a bath, and like,
Yeah.
because it really is about them.
Yeah.
And so just, I admire your strength
Well,
and
thank you.
how much you've had to go through and navigate, and how much you share and put out that could open it up for that, and you just
Mm-hmm.
yeah, tread through it so
I'll
beautifully.
try.
So
Well, thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
so
Thank you.
you're
Thank
amazing.
you. As soon as I get back to Edmonton, I'll be at KB and Co.
Amazing. Are your parents still here?
Yeah, they are.
Are
They
they?
love it.
Yeah.
They love Edmonton.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much again.
You're very welcome. It's nice to connect with you.